Hello folks, welcome to the Canal Channel Jose. Today we're going to give you an idea how to replace the thermostat on your Toyota Camry. And this job is going to be specifically for a 2007, 2015 Toyota Camry 4-cylinder. But 2002 and above have about the same location where the thermostat is, so it might help you as well. So we're going to show you that we are going to replace the thermostat and the housing because it's plastic, and after so long it dries up and it might break. So we're going to replace that as well, and we're going to show you a couple steps that is going to help you how you can replace it at home without taking it to shops, and you can save a lot of money. If you haven't done this replacement and your car has a lot of miles, even if it doesn't overheat, it's recommended to replace it at 100,000 miles. So if it has over 100,000 miles, you might want to replace this and change the fluid for new fluid as well. And with that said, let's jump right into it. So as you're looking at the front of your car, we're gonna have to remove this plastic, and the thermostat is right below or right in there. So we're gonna clean up a little bit so you can see how we do this replacement. We're gonna take off ourselves this plastic, and we're gonna take the alternator. We're gonna go a step farther to take the alternator out so we can get to the thermostat and you can see clearly how we do this. So here we have the plastic or the thermostat housing that we're gonna replace, because the one in the car is being there so long that this plastic is gonna dry up and they might break with if we put it back in. So we're gonna start with the fresh one. These are very inexpensive for what they do, so might as well start with a new one. And here we have the thermostat that we're gonna be replacing. This, we bought this at Toyota, and it comes with this rubber piece that goes on the side and the edge. You put it over on the edge. So these two are the thermostat, and then this is the part number for the thermostat out of the Toyota dealer. So now that we've removed the plastic, there's the hose for the thermostat housing, and what we're going to be doing is we're going to remove the alternator. So you don't have to do that. We're going that step farther so we can actually replace that, and you can see clearly what you have to do. So when you have the alternator there, you know what you gotta look for and how you gotta do it, because with the alternator there, it's going to be a little tougher for us to show you how you gotta do that. So once we clean that out, you'll be able to do it yourself with no problem. So now that we clear out a little bit better, so you can see there's a thermostat housing and there's this structure. We're going to be working on this area, so we got to take that clamp off and that 10 millimeter nut off, and there's another one in the bottom, 10 millimeter nut, that we got to take off. But before we start touching that, we got to drain as much as coolant that we can out of the system or the engine so we can replace it with new one. And to do that, we have to right about this area, right where that opening is. That's where the drain point is. So we gotta drain that liquid out of that whole engine through that opening. So you're gonna have to reach there and get that nut, plastic nut, to loosen it so all the liquid comes out. So as you can see, that's the bottom of the radiator, and there's the right on the driver's side fly nut that you gotta loosen. So, and then we connected a hose to the bottom of that butterfly fitting or the radiator, so we can guide the coolant down to the lower part where the catch pan is going to be. So you can do that to avoid spills on the plastic area on the top. So now that we're ready, we're going to feed or container right underneath there, and then we're going to open the nut for the drain point, and we're going to have this catching all of our coolant, so that way we can drain it all out now. So now we have the coolant coming out, and it's in a controlled environment, so we got it right into the container. So that's why the purpose of the little piece of hose connected to the bottom of the radiator, so we can go through the plastics and all that. And now we can open the radiator and take off the cap so the gravity does its job and it can drain the fluid faster. Here is the structure that sits like this, and we're gonna take off. There's a 10 millimeter stud here, or a nut, and there's a 10 millimeter right on the bottom. This is what you're looking for. There's two of them. So first thing, you're gonna have to take the clamp off, slide it, get the hose off, and then take that one off and the other one off so we can get the structure off, and then take the thermostat from there out once you have drained the fluid. And if not, we're gonna have to slide the pan underneath over here just in case any fluid falls out. So as you can see, that's the drain point of the radiator on the bottom. So we put a little hose right underneath there, and we open the butterfly nut so all the liquid gets out through the hose into the pan underneath. So that's how we did it. So now that we have slid our hose off the housing, we're gonna have to take this 10mm nut off, and this one over here on the bottom as well, to remove the housing. And to take off those two 10mm nuts off, we recommend you use a deep socket. Something very important that we want to point out before we take this thermostat out of here, there's purging valve here. You want to make sure that when you put your new one on the top end of the thermostat, because that all allows the air that is trapped in the engine to come out and go and burp itself into the radiator. We're going to make sure to explain that. That's very important, that that thing stays just like it is in the top position of it. So now we can remove the thermostat out of there. So that purging valve is this one right here. This one has to end up right on top, just like that one. We just want to point that out. So once you take the thermostat out, make sure that this O-ring comes with it, because if it doesn't come with it and you try to put the new one in there, you're gonna have problems. This is the old thermostat, this is the new thermostat, and this one has a 220,000 miles on it, plus whatever idle time. So we're gonna be installing this new one. So not bad for 220,000 miles, but we're putting this one already. It's time for a new one. So now that we took our old thermostat out, we're gonna start putting the O-ring around this, and we install this like this into the engine, and then we can start putting the cover over it. So now we can start putting everything back together. So now we get our new O-ring, we put it all the way around the thermostat. The thermostat falls right into the groove all the way around, doesn't have side. You just put it over it, and once you're done with that, we'll start putting the thermostat into the structure of the engine. Now we clean that area really good with a rag before we start putting our thermostat in there. So now we get our thermostat with the O-ring, and we put it in there with the purge valve on the top, like that. So now that that's in there, we can grab our plastic housing and put it over. So here we have our new housing, our old housing. So we're gonna be installing this. We just wanted to show you that they're the same thing. So you want to probably replace this when you're doing the thermostat, because they might be brittle and dried up. You don't want this to break. So we start with a fresh one. Now we have put the structure in. We put the 10mm bottom and top nut. So now that we have tightened our two 10mm nuts, what we do is we slide our hose into the structure to this point, and then we slide our clamp right over it, so it makes a good seal between in the hose and the structure. So now that we have put everything together, we're at the point where we can start adding our coolant now. And make sure that you close your drain point first before you start adding the coolant to the system. Now that we have put up the new thermostat, the housing, and everything's back together on that area, we're gonna fill up our system with new coolant, because we had to drain all that coolant out to put new coolant in there. And we have our old coolant here, which has been there for some years. So now we're gonna fill it up with our spill-free funnel, and then run the engine to get the air out of the system. Now we're just gonna take out the air out of the cooling system with our spill-free funnel. We're gonna try to get as much air out of the system so that way the system cools down better. So that's all we gotta do now. Now that we burp all the air out of the engine, we're gonna remove our funnel, specially made for this, and then we're gonna put our radiator cap back on, and then we're just gonna put the plastics back on, and that should complete the replacement of this thermostat and this thermostat housing for this Toyota. So now that we put everything back together, we got the levels of fluids where it needs to be. We check the temperature and it's normal. We've been running the engine for about 15 minutes. So now that everything looks good, we're done with the job. Well folks, we're done with the thermostat and thermostat housing replacement, and we filled up the liquids back to normal. We burped the air out of the engine. So hopefully this video can give you an idea how you can do this replacement yourself, so you don't have to take it to shops, and that way you don't spend a lot of money. All we did is buy the thermostat, and the thermostat was less than $30, and then we bought the O-ring as well and the thermostat houses. We spent about $60 in parts, and we did it ourselves. And now if you want to go a step farther and you want to replace the coolant as well, that'll be recommended. That way you start with fresh coolant. So that's another probably $30 that you gotta spend on liquid, but it's gonna be fresh liquid on the engine. So we gave you an idea. This might apply from the 2002 to 2015 Toyota Camry, but this was specifically for 2007 to 2012 Toyota Camry 4-cylinder. And with that said folks, for our friends who are watching the video, haven't subscribed to our channel, please subscribe. If you like our video, give us thumbs up, share it, and we'll see you soon with more videos here in the canal, El Chano Jose.